Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome guys, it's your sister Naima B. Robert here, back with another video on how to write for children. So we've covered a lot in this series, mashallah, and hopefully you've written a story, you've had a chance to get clear on kind of who it's for and where you're aiming it and all of that kind of thing. Now, a lot of sisters finish one of my courses or get to the end of one of my program or simply get in touch and say, what do I do next? I've got my story, I've had it edited, where do I go now? So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the different routes to publishing. If you're familiar with this area, then great. If you're not, then this may be might be a huge revelation to you, mashallah. So sit tight. There are about 3 different ways that you can get your children's story into the world as a published book. So let's start with the one that most people know about, which is the traditional publisher. I'm going to divide the traditional publishers between the established traditional publishers and the newer independent publishers. The reason I'm dividing them is because they work differently. And that is the same whether they are mainstream, so sort of the big non-Muslim publishers, or the Muslim publishers. They work differently too, but we'll get into that later. For now, what you need to know is that how a publisher works is that they accept your manuscript because they like it and because they believe it will sell. This is very, very important. A publisher may say no to your manuscript, not because they don't like it, not because it's not a good story, but because they are not certain that they can sell it, okay? So at the end of the day, a publisher is a business, okay? Publishing is a business and it's very costly. So what's happening in a traditional publishing contract is that a publisher is accepting your manuscript, and after deliberations and research, they decide, we think we can sell this. So what they do is they give you a contract, you give them the right to publish it, and they now start to invest in your book. So they will hire the editors, they will hire the copy editors, they will hire the illustrators and oversee the illustration process, the design process, the formatting, the printing, the promotion, the publicity, the sales. The publisher is going to invest and put money and people and resources behind your book, okay? Now, for many publishers, when they exchange the contracts, they may pay you an advance. That advance is money up front on the royalty that they will pay you on each book sold. I know it sounds a bit choppy, but just bear with me. Basically, if a publisher is going to publish and print 1,000 of your books, they're going to offer you a royalty, a percentage of each book sold. 3%, 5%, typically not much more than that. But let's play with those numbers for now, just so you have more realistic expectations. So the royalty that they would pay you, if it was 5% on 1,000 books, they will, if they offer you an advance, they will take a percentage of that calculated royalty and give it to you upfront. Just as a way of saying thank you for writing the book. Sometimes they pay you so you can finish writing the book, whatever the case may be. They'll give you some money in advance. That is an advance on royalties. It's not in addition to royalties, it's on those royalties. So they'll only pay you royalties once you've earned out. Meaning if they paid you £1,000, however many books would need to have been sold for them to pay your royalty of that £1,000, you'll have to wait for those books to be sold before you start to earn regular royalty checks. That's traditional publishers. Some people may say, hey, what do you mean? I wrote this whole book and I only get 3%, I only get 5%, that's a ripoff. Again, publishers, when they accept to take your book, they are putting resources and money and time behind your book. That's the reason why you don't get the lion's share. They take the lion's share, usually to pay off expenses, but also for the profits, because that's the business model. That's how traditional publishers work in general. That's one of the reasons why it is that much harder to get into traditional publishing, because your book has to be sellable. Again, just because your book has not been accepted doesn't mean it's not a good book. It just means that that particular publisher does not believe that they can sell enough copies to make the investment worthwhile. So it's worth knowing. Many of the biggest publishers do require an agent for you to be able to even send anything in. The reason for that is an agent is a gatekeeper, because if an agent accepts your manuscript, that means that someone from the industry, someone who has knowledge, has said, this is good. I think I can sell this. And that's why publishers prefer to get agented submissions, because it's already been vetted, if you understand what I mean. Okay, now not all traditional publishers require an agent. So don't be put off by the biggest ones and they say, you know, no unsolicited manuscripts, the thing everyone hates to see on a website. No unsolicited manuscript, we only accept agented submissions. That's for the biggest publishers. But if you go down, you'll see that there are smaller publishers, we call them indies or independent publishers, who are also operating on a more traditional model, but they don't have a policy of agents only, mainly because they're not as popular. They probably don't sell as many books as the big publishers, but they are able to read more stuff. They're able to be open to more voices, more submissions, etc. So if you are determined to be traditionally published, please don't be discouraged by the fact that the big guns ask for agents, etc. You know, so really widen your pool. Look beyond the big ones, the famous ones that everyone knows about, and research other publishers that maybe even fit your book better than those big guys. So that's traditional. We go to hybrids next, okay? Hybrid publishing is a newer form of publishing where a publisher gets the author to invest in the publishing process. So with the traditional, they're the ones who invest. In a hybrid, they get the author to pay to cover some of the costs, whether it's to pay for the illustrations or to just to pay them to publish the book, basically, right? Now, hybrids, I have seen it work well, and then I've seen it work terribly. The main thing to understand is what the hybrid publisher is promising you for your money. A lot of people think that if they pay this money, they're going to make tons of sales, they're going to make all the money back, and it's going to be amazing because they've got a publisher behind it. But if the hybrid publisher has not offered you marketing, if they haven't offered you a sales team, if they're not going to be pushing your book, then please be aware that these sales will still be your responsibility. So it's not because you paid them £2,000, you're going to all of a sudden make 4,000. It doesn't work like that. What you're paying the hybrid publisher to do is what you would be doing if you self-published, which of course would take more time and effort on your part. You're paying someone to do the same thing that you would do if you self-published most of the time. So be very careful when you see different contracts and different offers, especially when you put into Google publishing deal or publishing children's books. You'll see a lot of ads come up where they say, we're accepting submissions, send in your submission. Those are typically hybrid publishers, so expect that they are going to sell you a service. Enough said on that. The third way that many of our authors choose to publish is via self-publishing. Self-publishing is when you take on what the publisher would do, and you also take the majority of whatever you make as well. So you're not sharing the money with anyone else. You're doing it all yourself. You're doing it all yourself, so it means you're paying all the money, but then when you make any money, you're also taking most of it yourself. If you self-publish, you are responsible for ensuring that the book is edited. You're responsible for ensuring the illustrations and sort of guiding that process of getting it designed, getting it formatted, and marketing it to the world. For some people, this is very daunting. Other people take it on as a challenge. We've seen it work very, very well, mashallah, but there are things that you need to have in place if you're going to do it successfully. Not enough time to go into that in this video. Maybe we'll address it in a different video, but for now, at least you know what your options are. Everything is figure-outable at the end of the day, depending on your budget, depending on what kind of story you've written, depending on the audience that you're aiming for. So just know that if you have a good story, there are ways to get it out into the world. And don't ever feel discouraged because a certain avenue doesn't look like it will work for you, because there are others that you can explore. I've only touched on the main three. There are many other ways that you can get your story out into the world. So take heart And if you want to be inspired, mashallah, go to my website, naimarobert.com/services, and check out all the other amazing sisters that have published their children's books. Some of them with traditional publishers, some of them with Muslim publishers, some of them all by themselves. And they live to tell the tale. And inshallah, you will too. I'll see you on the next video. Wassalamu alaikum.